Donald Trump is getting ready for all-out war with Venezuela, even with an aircraft carrier group, the USS Gerald R Ford, now having arrived in the Caribbean. At the same time, Trump has also threatened intervention in Nigeria to allegedly protect Christians. What happened to the US peace president? So to discuss this, I'm joined again by Stas Krapivnik, a former US Army officer, supply chain executive. Stas, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Always a pleasure.
And I forgot to say, you have your own YouTube channel, and I encourage everybody to find it. We will get back to this. It will also, of course, also be in the description below. But Stas, how do you interpret A, the Caribbean, and B, Nigeria?
Well, okay. If the official line, and of course, we're fighting drugs, fentanyl. That's all. We're fighting fentanyl from Venezuela. Fentanyl is not like cocaine. Cocaine actually has to be grown, right? Fentanyl is made from base chemicals. A lot of them come from China. Not necessarily for narcotics production, but they can be used for that. And these cartels have businessmen all over with shell companies ordering. And these cartels are not Venezuelan; they're Mexican. That's the thing. The majority of the fentanyl that kills Americans is brewed within the first 100 kilometers, many just within 10 kilometers of the American border, in basements, in hideouts. Yeah. To get it across the border, especially when you have Trump's fence are these very tall, slick poles, but they have space between them. You can literally take this little package of fentanyl, about that big, that'll be enough for a full city plus, and hand it to your guy on the other side of the fence. He hands you a pack of money, and you don't need to cross into the U.S. border, maybe with your arm maximum, or a drone.
The whole drug issue is clearly a very thin facade. I mean, it's thinner than weapons of mass destruction, right? 20 years ago, thinner than that. It's ridiculous. Nobody believes it. But why would they, apart from the oil of Venezuela, why actually seriously have by now 25% of your navy there? Why threaten war with Venezuela? I mean, this was not necessary for the last 50 years. Why?
I don't think it's 25% because the U.S. has 11 aircraft carriers. True, a couple of them seem to be permanently in repair mode. But it's a significant portion, okay? Considering the U.S. has the largest navy in the world. It's a continent island. You can say that. There's several reasons. One, Trump needs a win. He's lost Ukraine. I mean, that's obvious. The U.S. just is looking at a strategic loss, global strategic loss in Ukraine. He can't go up against China, and no matter how much they're talking about, it's not realistic. There's no way they can support Taiwan if they push Taiwan into a war. It'll cost China. Absolutely, it'll cost China. It won't be a cakewalk per se, but there's absolutely no way that you can supply Taiwan, God knows where, across an ocean, under missile and submarine fire. It's not Ukraine, where Russia is just being nice enough, not hitting the NATO bases that are just across the border, Ukraine, and feeding into Ukraine. I don't think the Chinese are going to be that nice. So what do you got? As Trump said, we'll fight the wars we choose to fight. Well, he's looking for a quick win. And he's not looking for a war of invasion, because the U.S., it would be extremely difficult. And with those forces, they're there. Plus, by the way, the U.S. has been quietly, and then they had to admit to it, have been removing the 82nd Airborne out of Poland and 101st Airborne out of Romania. So these are the light divisions that can be thrown into Venezuela very quickly, or other places. But still, Venezuela is the size of France and Germany combined. Caracas is in a bowl surrounded by mountains that you have to go up through extremely difficult terrain up just to get to the city. The 80% of the oil is in the country itself, in the depths. It's only 20% that's on the offshore or just onshore, which the Marines can grab. Obviously, there's enough Marine power there. But, it's hard to hold when you have drones that can go 30 kilometers in distance. You're going to have to constantly start pushing out a perimeter to keep your infrastructure that you just grabbed from being hit. And there's millions of people under arms. I mean, they're arming the peasantry, which, by the way, if they're such a dictatorial regime, arming the peasants and the civilians usually doesn't work very well. They'll turn the weapons on the government if everything that's said is true. So obviously, since they haven't, maybe they're lying a little bit in the U.S. About the state of Venezuela, as they usually are.
No, the U.S. government lying about a foreign country, foreign population, and making up excuses? No.
I am a conspiracy theorist. I know I'm a radical on the edge. I've gone against all conceived logic that the U.S. media might actually fib a little bit, or that still it would take a local government that they could support. But parallel, and then Panama is understandable because the U.S. is trying to grab choke points to try to choke BRICS out of existence, and Panama Canal is an obvious choke point. But then they get into a fight with Colombia. They're in a fight with Mexico. And now Rubio's actively threatening to invade Cuba, which makes absolutely no logistical and strategical sense at this point. So you got to wonder how much of this is driven by any kind of strategy or desire, and how much of this is maybe vindictive Rubio against left-leaning government. Gets his daddy issues because Narco Marco
sorry, the connection is very choppy.
Yeah, Marco Rubio, his nickname is Narco Marco, and his family officially they left Cuba because of Castro. But if you look at the dates, his family moved to the U.S. from Cuba 4 years before Castro came to power. They were actually running from Batista. And his father, it turns out, was a leftist radical. So maybe he has daddy issues. He wants revenge against his dad or something, or the spirit of his dad. I don't know. But it is a bit ridiculous what they're pushing now. And it makes absolutely no strategic sense. Nigeria is also interesting. Because Trump, who, by the way, was just kissy, huggy with El Jelani, head of HTA, a.k.a. IGIL, a.k.a. Al-Qaeda, the guy that literally had American soldiers killed, the guy that literally, on video, cut people's heads off, women, children, the guy that literally is committing a genocide in Syria against Christians, against Alawites, against Shia, 10,000 of whom are living on Russian bases as refugees. He comes in the U.S. He gets he's not even the royal treatment. He gets the fanboy treatment. He's playing basketball with Central Command. He's on stage with retired General Petraeus, who, if you've seen the video, I can send you the video if you want to post it with your video. It is disgusting. Petraeus on there. Well, tell me, do you get tired? Is it difficult? I mean, do you have enough off time? I'm waiting for him to get on his knees and start performing fellatio. I mean, it's that disgusting. It's like the little groupie fangirl. Oh, it's my favorite boy band, Al Jelani and his head choppers. And this is the treatment he gets. So obviously, because they're still actively murdering Christians, defending Christians is not the issue here. So when Trump suddenly starts talking about, he must defend our Christian brothers. Well, first of all, Trump's not a Christian. I mean, he said it basically himself. He may have been baptized, but he's not this actively religious person. And when he says that that all these Christians are being murdered in Nigeria, there are. But realistically speaking, first of all, Christians are not a minority. They're 47% of the population. Muslims are about 47% of the population. The last 6% is animists, pagans. The majority of those being killed are actually Muslims because good Lord, the name of the group that's working in Nigeria just
Boko Haram?
Skipped out of my head. 1 second.
Boko Haram.
Haram. 1 second. Nigeria, Islamic. There's the Western Islamic State, West African Islamic State, and there's let's see, Boko Haram, there it is, and Boko Haram. They're the two groups, by the way, backed by Al Qaeda and the Guild, backed by basically the U.S. and the West. That has been that series, and they're fighting for power. So the majority of the people they're killing are actually Muslims. But all of that aside, why is Trump suddenly wanting to defend Christians in Nigeria, who happen to be in southern Nigeria? The southern half of Nigeria is Christian. Where's all the oil in Nigeria? One of the bigger oil producers in the world. Oh, that's right. The river deltas and offshore. Where's the gas fields? Oh, that's right. That's the southern portion of the coastal area. Where are the rare earth fields for mining? Oh, the southern coast, the Christian areas. There's not so much, I think, defending Christians as robbing the Christian population in the South of their key resources. I think that is probably the key behind the sudden desire to protect Christians in Nigeria, only in Nigeria.
But it seems like such a dumb thing to do. I mean, is the U.S. that dependent on oil? And I know we talked about this before, the issue with Shell oil and so on. But do you think that somebody told the current administration, look, we really need to get our hands on these oil fields now because 5 years down the road, we're going to be in a huge supply crunch? Why are they going after this now? Because in theory, the United States, I mean, it's still a net exporter of oil.
It is. Well, actually, the United States is a net importer of oil. It does export certain brands of oil, and it imports other brands of oil, which is one of the reasons the southern refineries are all set up for heavy crude oil, heavy sour crude. The three biggest producers of heavy sour crude is Venezuela, Iran, and the Russian Ural brand. Now, Canada produces sour heavy crude. There's other nations that do in smaller amounts. Canada does, but that's the oil sands. And the present cost of oil makes the oil sands just economically not very viable. By oil sands, they're digging up sand that's fully that's fully impregnated with this oil, which is heavy because it's very thick, sour because it has a lot of sulfur in it. So there's very specific processes to remove it. And basically they're evaporating it out of the filtering it out of the sand, and then they're returning the sand to the area and dumping clean sand. Then they're dumping back in. The sand's already impregnated with the oil. But it's a absolutely different process than if you're actually drilling for oil and pumping oil through pipes. To be able to, it has to be a processing option now to get the oil out of the sand, and it's expensive. It's one of those, oil has to hit a certain level before that becomes economically viable past very small volumes. I think, honestly, at this point, yes, the U.S. southern refineries need that Venezuelan oil. That's what they were originally set up for. Continuous flush of Venezuelan oil for cheap. That Venezuela was more or less an economic colony until Chavez came in and nationalized everything. That's part of it. But I think the bigger picture is actually to get oil suppliers off the market, to force prices up.
You think so?
Because the U.S. is making money off of oil, particularly to the Europeans.
Yeah, but now this is a point where we have this conflicting or contradicting interests of the U.S., right? On the one hand, yes, you want more money for your own oil, but on the other hand, the entire idea of the sanctions and shadow fleet and whatnot against Russia is to ruin Russia because they cannot make money of their oil anymore. So if you drive up global oil prices, well, I mean, it shows again how dumb the entire thing is, right? But the connection now to the war in Ukraine. I mean, do you have ideas about how that one connects?
Russia puts out produces 11.5, sells 7 million barrels per day. About half of that goes to China and Japan and India right off the bat. The rest goes to other nations. and it's off the books other nations. Basically, what it means is Russian tanker goes in the middle of, say, the North China Sea. The Japanese tanker comes up there. They pump it in Japan, and Japan has freedom molecules. They through the pump they become freedom molecules versus evil Putin molecules. That's as ridiculous as that sounds. That really is how most of this goes. It's just earlier the Greeks were doing much of this inner shipping. The EU is basically forced the Greeks out, and the shadow fleet, this evil, tyrannical shadow fleet, ghost tankers. There's basically tankers that aren't insured by Lloyd's of London. So they're insured by Chinese companies, they're insured by Russian companies, some other companies. And the main thing is my oil tanker is leaving my port, is going to your port. Do you accept my insurance policy? You say yes. It's everything legal. It's just the U.S., or particularly in this case, the British, they don't get a cut out of this. They like getting a cut. They basically had a monopoly. They by rocking the boat, they were stupid enough to create competitors for themselves, which often happens. We're a majority, they can't, or a monopoly, they can't work without us. They tolerate you because it's easier to work with you. But if you make it to a point where we have no choice, SWIFT is a prime example. We could just, we'll spend the money, we'll set up the system, and we'll never go back to you because now we've invested in setting up our own systems. SWIFT is, as a global system, is dead. I mean, the technology is nothing new, but because they started banning the ruble, and everybody else looked around and went, well, we could be next, China in particular. No, let's set up our own system. We got them halfway set up anyways. We'll just go ahead and finish. And both Russia has its own system, China has its own system. They're trying to integrate those two systems. India is on the Russian system, and all of a sudden, well, BRICS doesn't need SWIFT. And it's the same thing with the shadow fleets and other financial type IT structures. So from that point of view, getting rid of Russian oil, even through the shadow fleet, actually works for the U.S. because it'll drive prices up. Just to understand, 7 million barrels is about 10-11% of the global trade daily. That will severely drop, because it's not, most people think, oh, well, if they take out 10%, the price should go up 10%. No, it doesn't work that way. You take 10% off, and it's almost neck to neck supply and demand. So suddenly supply is a lot less than demand, and now you've got a bidding war. Because somebody's not going to get any oil, or not enough oil to keep their economy running. And now you have a bidding war, and everybody starts upping the price. And anybody that's still supplying, for them, that's a great thing, because the price is going to increase much further than what supply has dropped, because panic sets in, competition sets in. So yeah, that's great. It looks like that's and if the Americans can knock a few other providers off the market, well, that's great. That feeds the panic even more. This type of peak oil type panic that used to be there.
So in a sense, you're interpreting like these newest push, so Venezuela, Nigeria, not just as let's take over the oil, but also let's get rid of the competitors and make sure that we make top buck. And that's it. And apart from the other benefits, I mean, one more benefit is, of course, the win, right? And honestly, I do think if the war in Venezuela happens, it will be the most beneficial way for the Trump administration to kind of forget that there was another thing in Ukraine. And, the moment Zelensky really loses is the moment he loses public attention in the West, right? Once all of the cameras switch to Venezuela, that's the moment when we know it's finally over. So maybe is it that one? Because I always thought it would be Iran, but apparently it's not going to be Iran, it's going to be Venezuela.
I think that'll definitely be an added plus. That'll be one of those benefits. And guess what? Nobody's going to be remembering Epstein when the U.S. has to do a draft for Vietnam 2.0 in much worse terrain than Vietnam 1.0. Even though it's closer, at least, but that's the only benefit. It's much more rugged, mountainous area. But I think things like inconvenient little things like the Epstein files is really direct meddling in absolutely everything that's in the U.S. Iran, all these issues, they're all going to go very far to a very far back burner, because we're at war now, baby. And if you look at the way Vietnam escalated, it didn't go in with the U.S. Army or Marine Corps just charging in. It started with CIA operatives. Oh, yeah, we got plenty of those in Venezuela as it is. Starting up working on supporting the worst policies of the South Vietnamese government, which is extremely corrupt, and arming some of the local hill tribes against the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, but also against the South Vietnamese, because the hill tribes are a different nationality and they hate the Vietnamese in general. So you start with that swamp, and then when you had an open conflict between the Viet Cong and the South Vietnamese army, the South Vietnamese army didn't have enough troops. So to free up their troops, the U.S. brought in a battalion of Marines into one of the air bases near near Ho Chi Minh City. Well, it wasn't Ho Chi Minh City back then, and the South Vietnamese
Saigon.
troops went to fight. Saigon, right? And the South Vietnamese troops went to fight, and the Americans were on the base. Well, we're sitting on the base. They weren't attacked. So they started patrolling around the base. And the Viet Cong were avoiding them and studying them. Well, success was easy patrolling around the base. So they started patrolling further out. Well, at this point, they started having conflicts with the Viet Cong. They won a few of these clashes, but the Viet Cong stood back again, watched, and then launched an offensive. Yeah. And the battalion commander is screaming his lungs out, "Help us, we're about to be overrun." Instantly, he gets the rest of the brigade shoved in there from Okinawa straight to Vietnam. So now you're going from from CIA instructors to one battalion of Marines, to one brigade of Marines, to full division of Marines, to Army divisions going in, and it just exponentially grew really quickly.
It's a snowballing, and it's a snowballing also where like officers in the field can actually create realities, whether or not Washington likes it. This is actually what happened to Japan when they went out into Manchuria, and the dangers is huge. And I keep thinking, you hear that, especially about West Asia. You hear time and again, oh my God, the United States is being attacked because one of their military installations, a bomb went off or whatnot. It's like, oh my God, the U.S. military personnel under attack. We need to save our troops, right, in these locations. And I constantly keep thinking, like, why is it that Switzerland is so much better at not having Swiss soldiers killed in Iraq and Syria and so on than the Japanese than the Americans? It's a mystery to me. How do we do that of not having soldiers killed over there? But I will probably never find out.
If you look at historically, actually, Switzerland was very good at having its soldiers killed outside of Switzerland.
Because you stopped sending outside of Switzerland.
Yeah. Well, they were mercenaries. Switzerland's biggest export was mercenary companies. Very good mercenary companies, high in demand.
They
stopped doing that and they stopped dying.
It's a recipe for a snowballing catastrophe if you start sending your troops and start occupying stuff, because you need, as you said, you need to send more and more in order to protect. And not only that, in order then they might even start like, creating, try to do something, proof that they're worth something. I thought when Donald Trump came in, due to his rhetoric, that he would actually wind that stuff down. But it seems by now that the neocon faction around Rubio kind of won out against the, let's call them the restrainers around, what's his name? The vice president. Vice president's name.
J.D. Vance.
J.D. Vance. Yeah, Vance. Vance, Gabbard, and so on. They're from this restrainer section.
Right.
Do you also think it's just okay, fine, the Rubios and so on, they won, and they are now the ones like who've got Trump's ear and thereby brain and thereby his signature through his hand?
Right. Problem with Trump, number one, is the man doesn't have follow through. If you look at his first term, what I think his mental capabilities were much higher than they are right now. If you actually look at the way, do any analysis on the way he speaks now, he's speaking more like a 10th grader, or well, not 10th grader even, more like about a 12-year-old. Sentence structure, the words that he's using. He spoke very differently in 2017, 2018. There's more cognitive, I think, functionality. I think there is degradation. Nobody will ever prove it because no president is going to submit himself to a real full medical, and disclose that information. But Trump said in his first term, we're leaving Syria. And instead of leaving Syria, there actually got to be more troops in Syria, illegally occupying and stealing Syrian oil. Still are, by the way. Nothing's changed. But what happened was the military just lied to him. And he didn't have the follow through to go actually check. They were just giving him bull reports. And then it finally came out that, and he wasn't checking, and people were telling him, but the military hasn't left. Oh, we've left. No, you haven't actually opened up new bases. So that was one of those, yeah, okay, say what you want, Mr. President. We're just going to do what we want. Thank you. Bye-bye. Which, of course, any officer that disobeys direct orders from the president should have his career ended and maybe spend a little bit of time contemplating his stupidity in a jail cell. Military jail cell. But obviously none of that ever happened or anything even close to that. This time around, I think Trump has also, the mental capacity and the egoism, narcissism has gotten much, much worse. The 8 wars I've solved, he's already claiming. Of course, he brought Albania, Azerbaijan to peace, Armenia, and Cambodia to peace. I think he finally got Armenia and Azerbaijan hugging too. But he's apparently solved the Ethiopian Egyptian war that's been going on since somewhere around 1,000 years before Christ.
Yeah, the fantasy world that he builds up is quite fantastic, and Alex Christophorou actually makes a lot of fun about that. Yeah.
Yes, he does. Tom and Jerry, Bugs Bunny, and Elmer Fudd. I mean, they're all in line to be the next great peace accords. But that's one thing. But on the other hand, he has to have a victory somewhere. He boasted 24 hours, okay, 30 days, okay, 100 days, okay, I don't know when, with Russia and Ukraine, because it turned out to be much more complicated. Because it's not a real estate deal. This is not about, hey, you take this and give back this, or you give back this, and you take this, as what Trump was imagining it to be. This is a wholly different and much more complex issue. And he looks like a loser. Like it or not, he looks like a loser. The world's laughing. At the same time, internally, the U.S. is in a world of hurt because of tariffs. Because unbelievably, tariffs are paid for by the final consumer. And these tariffs aren't protecting American businesses because, there's to bring back industry into the U.S., it's much more difficult than just tariffs because the reasons that they left, the core reasons, oftentimes are mismanagement from the government side, uneducated or not enough education in the workforce, very expensive workforce, high taxes, incredibly insane regulations. But all these things are either at state levels or even if they're federal levels, they take a long time to fix. That's something that you actually have to work at. Versus, and here we go, tariffs. Well, that took 5 minutes. So what are we going to do for golf now? That seems to be the attention span of Trump, unfortunately. There was even a report that, it's a known fact he doesn't read his intel reports. He doesn't go deep into any understanding. There was even a report that Tulsi Gabbard was restructuring the intel briefs to make it into Fox News type news blobs, like info blobs, which is ridiculous if you think about it. But that's the reality. That's the reality that she's living in. And I think she's been gagged very well, and she doesn't want to lose out because she's no longer a Democrat. She's no longer a Republican. Her career is over. So she's pretty much just shut up and going along with going along. And J.D. Vance, honestly speaking, vice presidents in America have never had a lot of sway. That's just the vice president has to be there just in case because that's the Constitution. They're hardly ever groomed as a replacement or as a dear right hand of the president. In fact, many vice presidents have absolutely no idea what's going on. Roosevelt is a prime example of that. He kept Truman in the dark to such a degree that Truman learned about the atom bomb the first day he became president of the United States. Think about that. The biggest war, quote, ending project, and the vice president of America has no idea it exists. So vice presidents are always usually kept to the side or minimalized. So, but the minister of foreign affairs or State Department, in the case of the U.S., and the minister of war, because that was actually the original name of it.
Yeah.
Then it became the minister.
Yeah.
Then it became the Department of Defense, and then it's just come back to Department of War. They have a lot more sway, much more sway in the U.S. government.
Yeah, and let's not forget Rubio is also the national security advisor, so he has both roles. So in a sense, I mean, in a sense, my question is answered. Yes, the neocons got the White House, period. That's just it. So we can expect this to be a neocon administration from now on forward, unless something dramatic happens internally.
I will make two exceptions of what I said about vice presidents. Well, House, not George Bush Jr. Cheney's and force their own decisions on the Pentagon. In that case, man, I would say the second one was Biden, but Kamala Harris is an empty suit. That woman is about as smart as a broken brick. So she wasn't running anything as vice president, but other people were doing it quite well, a little bit further down the chain of command.
Yeah, and Stas, thank you very much for that overview. And I apologize because we've had some connection issues. So if not all parts were completely audible, sorry about that. I still very much appreciate all of the overview you gave to us. People who want to find you, they should go to your YouTube channel, which I will put into the description below. They should also look you up on the other platforms. I know that you're on Telegram. Is there another place to find you?
Yeah, I'm on X. Keep wanting to say Twitter. I'm on X at Stanislav Krapivnik.
Okay, it will be in the description below. Stas Krapivnik, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.